Okay, and we're back with another video. This one is called Don't Punch a Nazi. So, we're kind of looking at some things that are happening in the world right now, and my intention is to kind of shed some light on some of these issues from the perspective of the Buddha's teachings. And so, um, what we find happening is, a lot of division. There's a lot of division in the world right now, especially in places like the US and in the UK, in Australia, in Europe. So there's a lot of political tension, social tension, culture wars, a lot of uh, a lot of kind of battling going on between two opposing sides. And in many ways this is kind of an inevitable aspect of life and society living together. But there are many traps that we can easily fall into, and the invitation here is always with Buddhist practice and Buddhist philosophy. We're kind of we're kind of bringing everything back to the level of our experience. So it's not so much of an it's not about absolutism. It's not about what is absolutely right or wrong. It doesn't try to necessarily define the world out there. And although that can be helpful when we get stuck on the external world, then it's easier to fall into a lot of these traps because our efforts then become some kind of attempt to fix the world or to change other people. And that can be an honorable intention to have, but there are a lot of skills to develop around how to to come forward and engage with the world in a way that is aligned with our highest intention for ourself, and so that we can act in the world in a way that we can feel good about, in a way where hopefully we can be an example of what we actually stand for, of what we actually believe in. So the problem is when we get fired up, when we get all riled up, when we get angry because of injustices that we see happening, when we get angry at, other people or the other side, and then we feel compelled, obligated to kind of to stand up, to say something, to fight back. And if we're not careful, our efforts are compromised, or let's say our values are compromised by our inability to act with integrity. So before we step forward, before we, try to do something about what's happening out there, the invitation here is to pay attention to what's happening with us first. And there's so much to learn at that level, at the level of our own being, at the level of our direct experience. And when we become curious and interested in what's really happening with us, then a lot of things kind of fall into perspective. A lot of things are revealed. And when we develop an ability to calm our minds down, then we can start to see things clearly. And when we see things clearly, it becomes more obvious what is worth pursuing, what is worth holding on to, and what is worth letting go of. You know, what are we holding on to that becomes obviously something that is hurting us? And then therefore it's revealed to be something worth letting go of. And so, as the title of this video suggests, today I want to bring up this kind of um, somewhat popular motto that I've heard, which is punch a Nazi. That this is kind of in response to, let's say, the extreme, the far right, the tendencies of the far right to be fascist and to be white supremacy, to there's a kind of lack of tolerance, and there's a hatred, and there tends to be racism, and many things that we kind of consider to be wrong or manifestations of evil. And so what we do with that information or with that perception becomes very important, because there's a lot to process there, and and it's easy for us to kind of get swept away by the reality that there are people out there who really stand for something that we believe is inherently wrong, inherently bad and evil. And with that sense of being on the right side, being on the correct side, and having sort of that feeling of obligation to kind of fight against the wrong side. And so that's happening. This idea of like right versus wrong is happening out there. It is some kind of projection onto the external situation. And I don't want to just to try to make any claims about that's not valid, or it's not based in reality or anything like that. But what I do want to offer today is, again, to just bring it back to our own experience, and trying to kind of dig deep and see if we can act with that integrity that will allow us to feel like our actions reflect our values. So the biggest trap, right, is that we end up hating the people who are hating other people. So our main reason to hate them is because they hate other people unjustly, unfairly. And we can sometimes justify this because the reason that, let's say, a Nazi hates other people is based on their their race, their ethnicity, the color of their skin, this kind of thing, their religion. And so we look at that kind of hatred, and we can see like there's uh, we have a big problem with that, right? It's like that's not something that we can accept. That's not something that we can tolerate. But if we're not careful, then what happens is, we end up hating them in a way that's very similar to the way that they hate other people. And so, they're hating people based on skin color or race or religion, ethnicity, and we're hating them because of their ideas, or at least the ideas that we assume them to carry. And so it's not really that much different. There's not that much difference in the justification. In their experience, we can see that they also believe that they're on the right side of humanity, that they're fighting for a noble cause. And they have a justification in their own minds for hating certain people. And they think that they are right. They think they are correct. So if we disagree with their justifications, then we have to also look at our own justifications to see, are we doing the same thing that they're doing? Are we hating people for the same reason that they're hating some other group of people? Or is it really that much difference? And when we break it down, we can see that, well, the main thing is that if we're hating Nazis, the question to ask is, who suffers from that? So, you can tune into your own body and into your mind and your heart, and you can sense, what does that feel like to hold on to this kind of hatred towards fascists or Nazis or racists. And then you just get a felt sense of like, well, this is what it feels like to have these feelings towards these people. And you can even ask yourself, like, what does it feel like to feel right? To feel like you are correct? And then, there's an opening here that starts to present itself. That it's like, okay, well, these things are manifesting themselves at the physical level in the body. They're actually arising in the body as physical sensations, physical and emotional sensations. And we can actually feel them. We can come to know them. And that's really important, because when we tune in to feel them, we can determine if these feelings are making our lives better or worse. Are they pleasant or are they unpleasant? And as you tune in and you notice how these feelings manifest in the physical body, you might feel tension, tightness in the chest or in the throat, in the belly, in the face. You might feel like the arising of heat. and pressure. You might feel kind of like a restlessness or a anxiety, and then you notice, like, how does that feel good? Does it feel good to carry these strong emotions with us just because we think that we're right? And again, I'm not making any claims that we're not right, but this is stepping back. The invitation here is to step back from the issue and notice the physical and direct reality, the physical experience and the reality of what it's like to go through life in this way. And then we can start to decide if that's something that we want to continue with. And then we can also start to recognize, in what way are these helping me? Does it help my ability to think clearly? Does it help my ability to act with integrity and to act with intention and to act in a way that reflects my values? So what I see is a lot of people who I know at the deepest level stand for peace and love and tolerance. But because of these difficult times, because of extreme situations and terrible events and rising tension, and because of these strong physical, emotional reactions that we're having, I see a lot of these people getting pushed into this kind of form of hatred and intolerance towards the people who are intolerant and towards the people who are hating other people. So when we can calm the mind down and assess the situation clearly, we might find that carrying this hate and this idea that, like, oh, if I see a Nazi, I'm gonna punch him. And if we step back from that, we're like, whoa, does that align with my highest intentions for peace and love and harmony? Or am I just falling into their game? Right? Like, that's the game that they created the rules of this game of intolerance and hatred and anger. And so, do we want to try to defeat them by playing their game? Because then it's just bashing heads. Then it's fighting in the streets. Then it's shooting each other and killing each other and feeling that by hurting someone else, by killing someone else, we've actually accomplished something towards a higher goal, towards a higher vision for what we believe in. But I think we have to really question that. Is like, does that reflect the vision that we have for the world that we want to create? A world where violence and hatred is okay as long as it's against someone who we deem as bad. So it's a tough one, right? Because there's that strong conviction that we are on the right side of this issue. But we should also remember that's also the same conviction that they have. They have a different perspective, they have a different experience with life, different upbringing, maybe different values, and however they got there, they somehow arrived at this place. They weren't born this way. Somehow arrived at this place where they thought they were doing the right thing. So, everyone thinks they're doing the right thing. And it's only the people who can really step back and take a look at that and notice, well, why do I assume that I'm on the right side of this? And if I'm sure that I am, what can I do about it? How can I address the issue without losing that integrity? How can I move forward without holding on to something in my heart that's causing me to suffer? Right? So this is really not an easy reflection. It's not an easy thing to practice or to investigate, because these are things that we have such strong convictions about. But if you do stand for peace and love and harmony, which certainly, from a Buddhist perspective, these are good values. And if that's what we want to see in the world, we have to start with ourselves. We have to recognize, where have we lost those values in our own hearts? Where has our idea of tolerance, where has it turned into intolerance? Like, where's the line? As soon as we see that someone is a bad person, then we have no more tolerance for them anymore. We have no more love for them anymore. So this kind of very limited concept of peace and love and tolerance, I would argue, it creates a lot of opportunity for us to lose touch with what we really care about. So my invitation is to connect with an unlimited sense of these things. So the unlimited, I know it's not easy, but the unlimited says no matter what. And the key distinction here is that doesn't mean that you have to condone certain people or certain types of behavior that you really think are evil. Doesn't mean that you're okay with it. Doesn't mean that you don't want to stand up to it. Doesn't mean that you don't want to do something about it. But it does invite us to do that, to do something about it without hating the other person. Because when we hate someone else, we're the ones who suffer, not them. And so the idea of punch a Nazi is like, well, I feel bad. These people are making me feel bad. And we might not even be conscious of that because it's happening in the body and it's bringing those difficult, uncomfortable sensations that we don't like. And so that kind of impulsively encourages us to go out and kind of take that out on the other person. It's like they're making me suffer internally, so I'm going to, try to hurt them physically. And then somehow, the thinking is somehow, that's the right thing to do, or somehow the world will be a better place, or somehow it's more fair that way, that they deserve to be hurt, they deserve to be punished, they deserve to be destroyed. But be careful here, because the extreme of this is that, oh, if we can only get rid of all of those evil people, then we'll have like a utopia. But that sounds a lot like Hitler's plan, doesn't it? That it's the same kind of thing. That like that kind of justification is like, all we need to do is get rid of all the people that we don't want to be here. We got to get rid of all the people who are less than us, or who are evil, or who are bad. And again, there's different kinds of justification for someone like Hitler and someone who is fighting against people like Hitler. But it's not that different. It's not that different, because there's a hard line of intolerance, and it says anyone on the other side of that line is less than us, because we're on the right side, they're on the wrong side. And because they're less than us, they don't deserve love, they don't deserve tolerance, they don't deserve to be treated equally, they don't deserve to be treated with respect. They deserve to be punished, they deserve to be hurt, they deserve to be killed. We need to just get rid of them or squash them out. And it's like, this is dangerous, very, very dangerous, slippery slope of this type of thinking. And when you reflect and tune in to how that kind of feels, it doesn't feel good. So what can we do? What if we connect with an unlimited sense of peace and love and tolerance? That if we want harmony, it has to be all-inclusive. If we want to fight against hatred and intolerance, we have to be willing to include those people as well. So we have to make our hearts so big that it includes the whole of humanity. And it says, regardless of what you believe, I have goodwill for you. I have goodwill towards you. I wish you no harm, and I actually wish you happiness. We have this loving kindness practice in Buddhism. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. And this is a very powerful practice, because it's all beings everywhere, regardless of what they stand for, regardless of what they believe, regardless of what they've done. Maybe they've done a lot of terrible things. But if we start excluding people in our circle of compassion and respect and tolerance, then it's the same kind of game that we are dismissing them for playing. And the only difference is that we are convinced that we are right, even though they're convinced they're right too. And I do think there is right or wrong. But how to tell is not easy. And the easiest way is that from a Buddhist perspective, that which is good and right and honorable is what is based on love. Has to be unlimited, unconditional. There's got to be some kind of, it has to extend to everyone. And that which is based on ill will and anger and hatred and wanting to harm others, or wanting others to have something bad happen to them, that's where we draw the line. So you can see that in our fight against that version of evil, we can easily get pulled into that, across the line, onto that side of having the same, holding on to those same things of wanting them to be hurt or killed or something terrible to happen to them, wanting to silence them, wanting to get rid of them somehow. And this certainly doesn't say that those who have done terrible things don't deserve, the punishment, like according to the law or whatever. There's still an opportunity for justice here. But when we have kind of taken upon ourselves to decide, the fate of someone, especially when it's based on what they stand for, not what they've necessarily done. A lot of times we don't know what they've done. And we might not know if, what they really stand for either. Someone might dress like a Nazi, and then we think that we're justified to go up and punch that person. But we don't really know if they're a real Nazi, or we don't know exactly what they believe. Sure, their appearance is insulting, and for good reasons. But the thing is that when we treat people as if they're bad or evil, that's fuel to the fire. I mean, that's what they're looking for. They want the reaction. If if someone dresses up like a Nazi and kind of goes out in public and nobody is mean to them, nobody, insults them or challenges them or, yells out profanities, they might feel a bit disappointed because they're trying to get a rise out of people. And that's kind of like the identity that they've created. But if everybody is nice to them, they're going to see that their shallow attempts aren't working. That they're trying to piss people off and they're trying to start a fight. Because that's what they want. That's what they need. Their whole identity depends on that. And if nobody takes the bait, then they just have to go home and, look in the mirror and realize, like, they have to consider what they're doing and what they're all about, because it's not really working. So if we're nice to people, no matter what, then we're going to see if you see the goodness in someone, then that's what you get. What you see is what you get. I know when I was a kid, in as early as elementary school, I got labeled by the teachers very quickly as a bad student, as a bad kid, as a bad boy. And after as a very young kid, it was, confusing. And after I had heard it enough times from enough different teachers, I just kind of went along with it. All right. I guess if I'm a bad boy, then I'm going to act like a bad boy. If that's who I am, here's my teachers who are older and I'm supposed to respect them and they're teaching me. If they're teaching me that I'm bad, then what's going to prevent me from becoming terrible? What motivation do I have not to act out that part? So, this happens all the time. That once we label someone and we pin them down as being this or that or this or that, like, oh, this person is a criminal. You're a criminal. Now I'm going to treat you like a criminal. I'm going to treat you like you're no good. Like, I can't trust you. Like, you're definitely going to do something to hurt me. And then how does that work? Well, a lot of times that just makes people continue down that path. So what's the solution here is, to see the best in people, to invite people to reveal the best in themselves, regardless of what they've done, regardless of what they believe in, regardless of what we think they stand for, or maybe we know what they stand for. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter because we can change, right? We're not solid, unchanging entities. This is all a process. And there's always some ability to choose, and we're influenced so much by each other that, like, sometimes people get pushed into these corners because they were mistreated, because they were abused, because they were hated. And then the only way they can make sense of the world is to project that back and to hate and to abuse and just to embody those things that they hated about other people. Because in some ways that was the feedback they were getting from the world, is like, well, these people are doing evil things to me, maybe because I deserve it. Maybe because I am a bad person. Might as well become a terrible person. But if we treat those people differently, if those people had been treated differently from a young age, they wouldn't be that way today. And the hope is that they might not be that way tomorrow. I've been around a lot of people who were dangerous and scary. I've been in a lot of dangerous situations with criminals, with violent criminals, where my life was in danger, for sure. And sometimes, surrounded by a group of big guys, and they're kind of coming in like, and they're saying things like, they're gonna get me, and definitely feeling that, these guys are scary and they don't like me and I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time, and having some kind of deeper intuition that if I react to that, then that's exactly what I'm going to get. If I react to that attitude that they're projecting onto me, to that kind of character they're playing, you know, they're all walking up like they're so bad and so tough and so dangerous. But what I've done in every situation, and I think it's the only reason I'm alive today, in all of those situations, I treated those guys as like they were my buddies. Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, what are you guys up to? And I was afraid, but I didn't show my fear. I tried to open my heart and kind of meet their aggression with kindness. And in every situation I've noticed a shift where as they're walking up to jump on me, to rob me, to beat me up, to kill me, I don't know. And then instead of running or being afraid or yelling at them, when I was friendly to them, then all of a sudden their whole kind of demeanor shifted and they softened. And many times they did open up and they're like, "Oh, hey, what's up, bro?" And it's like, "Oh, maybe have to hang out a little bit, kind of play it out, and then, get out of there when you can." There's a story of a Buddhist meditation teacher in the US, I can't think of who it was, who was robbed, I believe, at gunpoint in New York City. And I can't remember exactly the details, but the kid who was robbing him, asked for his wallet, I believe. And then he gave him the wallet, and then the kid was about to run away. And the Buddhist teacher who was being robbed said, "Hey, wait a minute. Don't you want my watch too? It's a nice watch." And the kid turned back around and he was like, "What?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, it seems like you probably need this more than I do. So here, take my watch too." And the guy holding the gun was just melted, It's like all of a sudden he's being met with kindness, regardless of the fact that he's got a gun pointed at this guy, that he just stole his wallet, and this guy is still being nice to me. It's very transformative. And apparently what happened was the young man with the gun, was just like so thrown back that he gave the wallet back, and he apologized, and he's like, "I'm so sorry, man. I just, you know." And the Buddhist teacher invited him, like, "Hey, let's go sit down." And, I can't remember if they had a piece of pie or a coffee or something. But they went and sat down and talked. And, and the Buddhist teacher learned more about this person and what had pushed them to this point where they thought this was a good idea. So that commitment to recognize the goodness in others is so powerful that it's like, what do we really want? Do we want those people to be destroyed and killed and imprisoned and beaten? Or do we want them to change? Wouldn't that be better for our vision for the world? If the people whose hearts are so full of anger and hatred and resentment, and they're so lost and confused and they don't have any love in their lives most of the time. So can we imagine a world where all of those people, because of the way that we treated them with kindness, we opened our hearts to them, that they realized that the way that they were going, the things they were holding on to, were no longer serving them. And of course, it's worth mentioning that, we still have to protect ourselves. So you have to be careful not to just trust anyone who looks dangerous and, looks like they're up to no good. You invite them into your house and, you have to be smart and be careful, but we can look for the opportunities to practice what we really believe in: peace, love, tolerance, and not have it limited just to the people that we agree with, but expand it and invite all beings everywhere to receive this kind of goodwill that we have for them. I would say, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, I want you to be happy. And I hope that you can figure things out. I hope that you can turn your life around. I'm cheering for you. And if I can, if it makes sense, I support you in that. Not hating them, not wanting to hurt them. That's the only solution to the problem. So we have to play a different game. And then when you feel what that feels like in your body, to wish all beings everywhere to be happy, you can compare that to the feeling of wanting to punch a Nazi. And then you see which one feels better. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon in the next video.